द्वितीय अधिवेशन आरंभ करिबा किंतु ता पूर्वरु let's take this opportunity to thank our sponsors today. We are really thankful to our sponsors, Jupiter Group of Institution, supported by IMFA, associate sponsor, Loom Crafts Outdoor Furniture, Royal Plus 2 Science College, and Jindal Steel and Power. Darshak Bandhu, chalantu invite kariba mancho upurku Shri Sanjay Jhanku, National Spokesperson, Indian National Congress. And the session will be moderated by Mr. Rajesh Mahapatra again.
Do you think the worst has come? The worst is behind us, or do you think the worst has yet to come? And if it is yet to come, what do you see as its possible manifestation?
Well, Rajesh, this is going to be a very strange blue moon night tonight, because the Bharatiya Janata Party, the left and the Congress are all going to be on the same page. Let's look at some hard data. You have GDP today the lowest in the last 11 years. You have investment in India today at the lowest in 17 years. Manufacturing is the lowest in 15 years. Private demand is touched a low of 7 years. Agriculture has bottomed out, the lowest in 4 years. And the one thing which is the highest in 45 years is unemployment. Now, these are serious manifestations of an economic crisis, or call it a catastrophe. Now, to answer your question, the first thing that a government needs to do is to smell the coffee and acknowledge that you have a problem. That there are many foreign investors who are beginning to have skepticism and cynicism on Indian government data. We are being compared to China, which is the most opaque country in the world. So I think our first problem is recognize that you got a serious challenge. You have the former chief economic advisor of the government, Mr. Arvind Subramaniam, who said this is a great slowdown. Now the finance minister keeps arguing that there is no recession. But forget the technical definition of recession going into negative. But if you have 6 quarters of falling GDP, and you're not reading the writing on the wall, then you're living in a land of illusions. And let me tell you the tragedy. Politicians can still come and make speeches and try and mislead the public. But the one who really suffers are the common man, the common people. And right now we are in Odisha, so I want to make a point here. If you look at Odisha, for instance, this is a state which doesn't have enough private investment. Even agriculture nationally has been performing at 2%. This state is extremely dependent on the performance of the rural sector. You have serious problems in terms of what the center is going to give the state in terms of central assistance, because you are very vulnerable. In a weak economy, as the state of Odisha is extremely susceptible to generating revenues. And from what I hear, and I believe that's a real story, that there is a big disconnect between the issues at the ground level and between how even the state government looks at it. So the center is going to tie in its funding based on your political equation. GST collections, the shares of the states has not yet been given to them on time. And worse is that a state like this is so dependent on, frankly speaking, the state's bureaucracy or some of the chosen leaders to deliver. You can't run a state like Odisha like that. And we know the problems here. I mean, it has been talked about for several years now as to how deforestation, crony capitalism, the exploitation of mines, these can have a very deleterious effect on the economy and in the lives of the common man. And whenever you're obsessed with creating headlines, we are going to be a 5 trillion economy. That's what they say, right? Mr. Modi says we'll become a 5 trillion economy. To become a 5 trillion economy, you need to grow at around 10.5% per annum. At the current GDP growth rate of 4.5%, or say even 5%, India will reach 5 trillion in 2030 or 2032. Why are we trying to mislead the people of our country? I mean, people can calculate this on their calculator. So I think the problem with Mr. Modi's government is that it is a headline-hunting government. It gives you these very sexy banner lines, but bottom line, there is no delivery. And that, I think, is a real serious problem for us.
The fact that we have ignored public investment in education and healthcare in a meaningful way is something that got aggravated during Modi's rule, but also started in UPA2's regime. What could be the game plan of your party to really bail the economy out of this mess?
Under the Congress-led UPA, during that 10-year period, which very often many economists have called it the golden period of the Indian economy, India's average GDP growth rate was over 8%, based on the new calculations. Average GDP growth rate was over 8%. We lifted 270 million people out of poverty between 2006 to 16, primarily in the UPA period. If you take only the UPA period, it was 140 million minimum that happened. That number has been increased to 270 million. The private sector investment, which you can measure as the gross fixed capital formation, reached a peak of 38% of GDP during the UPA time. Under Mr. Modi, it is down to 28%. Firstly, I don't think anything that you and I talk...
OTV's managing director in her opening remarks today said a crisis should never be wasted. So what's the opportunity?
Well, let me tell you that firstly, I hope this government listens, because from what I hear, this government is actually being run by just two people, and I don't have to name the two distinguished gentlemen. Now,
Where in Delhi?
In Delhi, yeah, absolutely. So now,
do you have any idea about Bhubaneswar?
I think
we'll come to that later.
I think what I've heard from the newspaper reports that Odisha is being run by a very few select chosen bureaucrats. So that's about it. But let's come to the crux of the matter. If you really need to sort out the Indian economy, the first thing the finance minister needs to do is to stop saying that the problem of the Indian economy is purely cyclical. The problem in the Indian economy is largely structural. But there are three fundamental problems that we have. The first is that this government has not acknowledged the serious problem in the banking system. That this government has not been able to sort out the reality that the public sector banks are in trouble. Today, you even have a situation where NBFCs have gone bust. The real estate and construction sector is suffering. And worst of all, I don't think this government has understood that agriculture, the backbone of the Indian economy, and the backbone, I think, for Odisha, that the agriculture sector has been neglected by them. But end of day, you haven't understood that the real story of India's problem is demand.
Thank you very much. The common thread is that when you have a problem, acknowledge the problem, be candid that you do not understand all aspects of the problem, listen, learn, be inclusive in your approach when you're trying to solve the problem. And this country has seen crises worse than this in the past, and has come together and has overcome those crises, has emerged stronger from those crises. I'm sure, as when my colleague Jaggi Mangat Panda started off in the morning saying a crisis should never be wasted, I'm quite hopeful that this crisis will not be wasted. People will find the opportunity, they will cash in on those opportunities, and India and its economy will eventually come out stronger. And that is why we need more such forums like Foresights and more such discussions. Keep coming back to us. Thank you very much for being patient. And thank you, Sanjay, once again.
Thank you very much, Shri Sanjay Jha. And yes, now I would request Mrs. Jaggi Mangat Panda to please felicitate Shri Sanjay Jha.